This is Dadnarok's WandaVision After Show. This is Sean. I'm joined, of course, as always, by my Android life mate, Chris. We're here to talk about WandaVision. How about it? Before we get started, go ahead and like and subscribe. Dude, it does us a huge service to the channel, helps us grow. So if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that like button and that bell so you don't miss any notifications. But yeah, we started doing the review. We did it for the Mandalorian season 2. We started doing that on the Disney Plus, and here we are. It's a month later in January. Disney Plus finally has a new show to watch.
About time.
Yeah, and we're here to talk about it every Friday, 10 p.m. right here.
Wow. Yeah, this show was as trippy as advertised.
Yeah.
Everything about this was weird as crap. I mean, where should we start with this? I mean, do you want to look at, want to just dive right into it?
Yeah, we're going to dive into it. So, spoilers abound. Beware if you guys haven't watched the show yet. Honestly, there's not too much to talk about yet because as far as the mystery goes, we don't really know anything more than what the trailers already provided as far as what's going on. We're still kind of scratching our heads after episode 2. But spoilers abound. Go ahead and interact with us. If you guys are watching on YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter, and you're able to make a comment, we'll be able to see it. So go ahead and do that so we can interact with you. But yeah, nowhere better to start than the beginning, man. And I'm going to start at the very beginning, the Marvel Cinematic Universe opening. It felt good to watch that little triumphant, where they're going through all the different movies and the Marvel logos forming and the big orchestral music is playing. It's been a while.
Yeah, no, it was really nice, to have that at the beginning though, and just that feel. We haven't had that feel in a while. It's been a long time since we actually seen these characters.
Yeah, Endgame.
Yeah, and I remember there was a lot of emotion behind Endgame too. So, I mean, they wait. Well, I mean, granted, they didn't wait. COVID happened,
right?
So, I mean, the timeline pulled it out. They were able to capitalize on all that, the emotions of Endgame.
Yeah, but well, these particular characters, we've got Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, played by Elizabeth Olsen, the younger sister of the Olsen twins. I don't know if you were aware of that.
It took a while. I can't believe it took so long for me to realize that. But yeah, I mean, I can see it now that I know.
And Paul Bettany, of course, plays Vision, and he bit the dust back in Endgame. He had I think it was the Mind Stone, right? It was the Mind Stone kind of ripped right out of his forehead by Thanos. And so he laid dead in black and white, which is kind of trippy. I didn't realize until I just said it out of my mouth that Vision, he's all colorful, but when he had the Mind Stone ripped out of him, he went like charcoal gray, like black and white. That was
just
weird.
Like these first few episodes we've seen of WandaVision. And I don't think that's by accident.
Probably not, right?
I have a hard time believing that's by accident. But before we dive too deep in this, what are your opening thoughts? I mean, when you were going into this, what did you hope it would be? And did it achieve that without really giving away too much going further into this?
It met expectations, I guess. It wasn't, but my expectations were fairly high because it's a Marvel product, and like Marvel, I mean, even their stuff that's not as popular, like Ant-Man, it's still pretty damn good. I like it. They're enjoyable. So yeah, I was expecting, high expectations. It's it's from Disney. It's a Marvel product, just like the Mandalorian. I mean, Mandalorian, they went ahead and made a Star Wars TV show for the first time, and it's every bit as enjoyable as sitting down in the theater and watching a Star Wars film. So, good production value. Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany were great as always. They have really good chemistry. They've had good chemistry in the last few Avengers films. Kind of watching their relationship grow. As far as the premise, like I said, I mean, I'm still scratching my head. I get what they're doing. Like, it seems to be like every episode of WandaVision is sort of a satire with OG sitcoms from like back in the 60s, 70s. And we're going to see the 80s, 90s as the series progresses here. But so far, they revealed very little about what's going on behind the scenes. Which I'm a fan of. I'm actually glad that they released these first 2 episodes up front, because if we would have had 2 weeks in a row of not much progression as far as the major overall story, I would have felt like, okay, come on. But them dropping them 2 up front, it doesn't feel as slow, I guess.
Hey, what's up, Basement Surge? Thanks for tuning in here.
Team DC here.
Yeah, no, it was
this is
kind of
Marvel. This is Marvel.
Oh, I didn't even catch that. I just seen they were here. I mean, my opening idea was, I mean, I was hoping it would be trippy, and it was right out the gate. It was, and they held to that, that sitcom, and they held to it so tightly. It was even the actual run times were very close to what those sitcoms were. And when you first click on it, it's like, okay, 36 minutes, okay. But the first one ended at like the 20-minute mark. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of like extra. So I started kind of scrolling through it to see if there was anything extra there, and there really wasn't.
Right.
So, I mean, even the second one was 36 minutes, and it ended at 29 minutes. So the runtime is concerning to me, even though that I feel like they gave us a full episode and it felt like a full episode. It was like once we get a little more into the meat of the show, will that runtime be able to satisfy us? Is there like a minimum runtime that you need to feel satisfied in the show, though?
Yeah, I get your point. I mean, it was devastating kind of when the Mandalorian hit right around that 30-minute mark, because it's so enjoyable, right? We're so thirsty for new content as it is. So when they drop it in little bits and pieces, it's kind of hard to be satisfied. But I've heard an interview with Paul Bettany before the show started. It is a 9-episode structure. And from what I've heard, the first 6 episodes are somewhat formulaic, where they follow this sitcom structure, and you get little bits and pieces of what's going on outside of this little bubble that is Westview, the little town that they're in.
Yeah.
So the first episode, very much early 60s Dick Van Dyke satire. Second episode was more of a late 60s Bewitched. At the end of that, it turns into color. We lose the black and white, goes to color, just like Bewitched did back in the day. It was right around that time period where shows started, being aired in color. Next episode 3, we're going to see more of a 70s, like a Brady Bunch. Follow that by in episode 4, more of an 80s sitcom, like Family Ties. Then a 90s sitcom like Roseanne, where it's more like, salt of the earth kind of people. And then basically going all the way to that progression until they hit episode 7, where 7, 8, 9 are going to be more of a big Marvel Disney produced like action, the kind of stuff that we see in an Avengers film. So that's kind of been the layout that's been put out thus far. So more than likely, I think the next few episodes, we probably were going to stick pretty close to that half-hour mark on each.
Yeah, then when they get to that later point, they've got to build that runtime to like 46, 47 minutes.
Yeah.
In that ballpark to give us, the feel of what they're going for.
Right. I mean, super enjoyable. I mean, what were your thoughts as far as, did it meet your expectations?
Yeah, everything. I mean, to the point where I was sitting down and I loved every second of it. I loved how weird it was. I loved everything. I loved, from what we've seen already, to the dishes being done, to the little comment about, flying saucers and, Vision's head being hard. I mean, basically going back to Endgame. The flying saucers, referring to Thanos and everything coming out of the sky, and his head being hard, with trying to pull the stone out of it.
Yeah, that's funny.
So they opened up with 2 like Easter egg nuggets. If you were a part of the universe already, there are 2 things that you may have caught on.
Right.
I didn't catch the head hard thing immediately. I caught that second watch. The flying saucer thing I got immediately.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty good. But no, I was pleased. I was really happy the way it went. Those 2 have such chemistry together. It doesn't look forced at all.
Right. Yeah.
And even with it being in black and white, it still had that feel to it. Like you weren't missing any color. Like you weren't watching like, oh man, I wish there was color in this, here and there. And when they started adding it later in the second episode, it was really dramatic.
Yeah.
When they started adding it. So they were going that route, which was nice.
And what's funny is that they really went for it as far as doing these old sitcoms. I mean, just even the way they were talking and acting, it sounded like they were, we were watching an actual show that was produced in the 60s. Like as far as going for it, they did. And Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany did a really good job just kind of like mimicking that style of TV show back in the day. And it's funny, for audiences like us, we're in 2020, sitting down and watching an old black and white 60s sitcom. It may not be the most, enjoyable or something that we'd want to do. We might get pretty bored with it. But the thing with this series is that there's something else going on. So the entire time you're just watching it like, okay, well, is that a clue towards something? Like,
yeah,
that character
looking for Easter eggs, looking for other things.
Yeah, because there are layers and there's dialogue that's coming up that's gonna come back later, where you're gonna watch the show on repeat and be like, oh, they were hinting towards that big thing.
Yeah,
at that point. So it's a fun watch.
I mean, let's just go into it. I mean, that first scene we already talked about, kind of the dishwashing.
Yeah.
But they look at the calendar and there's a heart on a date. And the interaction between the two, the back and forth, like neither of them wanted to admit that they had no idea what was there.
Right.
And I can just picture myself looking at a date and Janessa looking at a date and neither of us knowing what it was, but neither of us are going to admit that we have no idea what it was.
Yeah, that was very funny, but it was like, I also had hints of the fact that they didn't know what that date was because they're in this like dreamlike extra dimensional, whatever trap they happen to find themselves in. They just don't have a memory of what that date was. So it kind of plays into that too, just like the weird head games that are going on in between these two.
It's almost something that could have been put there prior to them like showing up because they were hinted that, well, you unpack so quickly.
Right.
So it's like it could have been just a calendar that went up with something on it and they really didn't know what it was until they looked at it.
Yeah, that's the big thing about this show so far, and they don't give you too many hints, but it's like, is she stuck in some alternate dimension? Is this something that's like self-inflicted? Is she doing this to herself? Is she trapped and being possessed by some other being? Like, it's very nebulous right now, and we get little.
I feel like she knows she's in something and she's controlling something, and they're both very, very cognizant of what they are. It's not like they're trying to fit in and they're hiding everything. I mean, even with like say the second episode when Vision eats that piece of gum. I mean,
how'd you like that little animated thing with the gum gumming up the works inside all his gears getting stuck?
Oh, that was fun. I loved when their neighbor came over. When Angus came over.
Oh, Agnes, yeah, she was good.
She was beyond good. I thought in some scenes she stole some of the scenes.
Right.
But the whole, they're celebrating something. Then they narrow it down to anniversary, which they didn't know. It's like a young thing like you doesn't have to try very hard. There was a lot of things in this show just because they were channeling the old time.
Right.
They couldn't put in nowadays TV shows.
Yeah,
so they're getting a lot of leeway here because they're actually channeling old stuff.
Right. A lot of the like the male chauvinistic type stuff and, housewife woman doing the, housework and all that stuff.
Yeah.
They were able to kind of present because that's what the era that it came from.
Well, there's even a line in there for the husbands. Yeah. How to goose your wife not to lose your wife.
How to treat your husband to keep your husband.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, lines like that you wouldn't see in very many shows anymore.
No, but actually it was of the time, right? It's like shows were like that. So but yeah, so they have two separate ideas of what this date actually means. So Wanda, after talking with Agnes, she comes down to the realization that, well, maybe it's their anniversary. She doesn't even know for sure, but she just kind of rolls with it. It's like, oh yeah, it must be our anniversary. So she's like, preparing the house for an anniversary, like a nice romantic evening with candlelight. And she's in like that old school, lingerie that, it's like a robe with fur and stuff. That isn't very revealing at all. And then Paul Bettany, the Vision, he goes to work and he realizes that his boss's last name is Hart. And this was the night that his boss and his wife was going to come over and have dinner at the new place at their house. So, hijinks ensue. It's a classic sitcom, plot where we've got kind of some crossed wires here. And that phone call was funny too. When they were
the phone call was great.
Yeah.
If this goes bad, this could be the end.
You're being a little dramatic, aren't you? Yeah. It was funny. It was really well done, like really sharp writing, and appropriate for the time.
I mean, in the whole scene with the boss coming over and his wife, Deborah Jo Rupp. I mean, we get a hint of her actually in the trailers.
Yeah,
but, I mean, she did a great job in it as well, kind of selling the whole. And well, she was in that '70s show.
Yeah.
So that's kind of her shtick almost.
Right.
It's almost like it's where she feels comfortable because she can pull it off with ease.
Yeah, she had a moment too where she kept saying her head felt funny or she was spinning, and they kind of played it off as she was just hungry. But
Yeah.
that's the thing about this show. You just never know. Like, we don't know, what reality we're in. So any of these characters could be having some weird timey-wimey head trippy thing going on where they kind of go in and out of it.
Yeah, they had that, and it was the whole dinner. Who's making dinner? When are we gonna eat? And then once
Yeah.
again, we see Angus come in the back door, and she's got all this food, and she says something like to the instance, "Well, this should be done in a snap," and she has no
Right.
idea. You know, what I mean, I was like, okay, why is Wanda going through all this when she can just
Yeah.
go ahead and no one can see what's going on? She brings a turkey, either burns the turkey, then takes it all the way back down to eggs.
Right.
And,
Yeah. That was
I
kind
mean,
of
little
funny.
things like that. It was just fun watching her go through the whole process. But they
I thought
finally,
literally she was just going to snap her fingers and then like a whole feast would appear, but no, I guess she had to work with what was there.
but we finally sit down. They're finally, eating dinner, and then this winds up happening. And I think it's important. I think we need to talk about it because I don't know if it was purposely done or not.
Damn it, why? Why did you...
Oh, Arthur, stop it.
Did
Yeah.
you now when I watched that, my first thought was Mr. Hart was getting really aggressive. I mean, he
Mhm.
was sort of pounding on the table. He was getting really just in your face when they weren't answering right away. Did Vision cause him to choke?
Vision, I noticed that too. Vision had a look on his face that was not of concern. The look was more just like focus, as
Yeah.
though maybe he was causing that. Also,
Because
as
Wanda gives him a look as well, like help him. Like
right,
she gave him the wife look.
she
Like
did, yeah.
you better straighten this out.
It was pretty curt. It was like help him, and he, jumps to action. And at the same time, thinking back on what he was actually asking, he was basically demanding what their story was. How did you guys get together? He was asking for some past occurrence, some memory, which they can't. They are having a hard time drudging up, past
They've got no
thoughts
idea.
and
Yeah.
memories. So I almost took that as though the characters were fighting this inner monologue where, the boss was demanding it and his wife was just like, oh, come on, honey, they don't have to or whatever. Just
Yeah.
kind of like playing those different, like a torn mind dynamic. And I almost thought it was almost like Wanda's inner monologue, like, no, how did we meet? Like, what is our story? And it was almost like herself, like denying that information. There's something definitely going on there because as soon as Vision used his powers to take the food out from his boss's throat, they basically left. They were like, okay, thanks for the good evening. See ya. And they were like,
Yeah, then he congratulates them and it's like, we're
yeah,
gonna talk in the morning about getting that promotion he was wanting to get. So something happened there that was, I think, completely controlled by Vision. And then Wanda put her white foot down and made him fix it.
right. And that in it of itself is like, what is Vision in this show? Is Vision actually Vision? Because, he's kind of dead.
Or is he a manifestation of her?
Right. Was this Vision created by her, or was this Vision created by some other entity that we have yet to meet? Maybe was it created by Ralph, the husband that Agnes keeps mentioning, but hasn't been on the show yet.
Yeah, was he implanted on something before he died?
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm sure we'll find out.
We're asking questions that we won't know for a while.
Yeah. So let's jump into episode 2. Still black and
Well,
white.
before we go there, do you want to talk about some of the Easter eggs real quick?
Oh yeah, yeah. You got a
I
quick.
mean, we
list?
have these weird commercials that are coming in the middle of it.
Yep.
And this one here, this one was all about a toaster. And once again, it's very misogynistic. The wife's sitting there, she's
Right.
making the toast. Do you not want your wife to burn your toast anymore? I mean, holy crap.
Yeah. Get this new Stark Industries fancy toaster.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. But and at the very end of that episode, there was also a sword, which I think is gonna be very important. There's something to do with this logo. Someone connected to the sword that's kind of like circled, not a quite a full circle, but it's on that, and we see it, other times in the show already as well.
Well, Sword, I have a little bit of information. So, Sword in the comics is like an offshoot of Shield, and you're aware of what Shield is.
Yeah.
Shield is the government agency that, like Agent Coulson was a part of and everything. Sword is this like offshoot where they deal with more like intergalactic or like space threats. And I don't know if they're carrying that particular functionality into this show. But I assume that the voice that we're hearing on the radio that breaks in and asks Wanda, like, who's doing this to you, that kind of thing. I assume that's Sword, and whoever's watching this episode is basically, the camera pans out and the entire black and white TV episode that we've been watching is playing on an old school TV, and somebody in the present in full color HD has been watching it. We don't see their face or who it is, but what we see is the Sword logo on their computer screen.
So it makes me think, where is Wanda herself? Because she's alive.
Right.
So is she being held against her will somewhere?
Yeah, and this town, Westview, is this like an actual real place? Is she like in a bubble, like the Truman Show kind of thing? Or is this entire town some like manifestation of her thought? Is she really just like on a gurney somewhere and this is all happening in her head?
She could be in a coma and it's all someone put her into like a medicated state.
Right.
And this is all her working within her head. And then there's times where she can actually sense something is up.
That's why I like this show so far, and you're going to give me crap, but there's so many questions that need to be answered, but it's so very interesting, and it's giving me Lost vibes. Hopefully it doesn't end like Lost.
Oh, I had a feeling you were going that way. I know when I was watching, I was kind of hoping you weren't going to go that way, but you went that way. Damn you.
The whole mystery.
Yeah, hopefully we don't see a polar bear or a mist.
All right, so how does episode 2 start?
Well, I mean, this is pretty dramatic. I mean, we start right out the gate, and it's kind of funny. I got ahead of myself. With them in the bedroom, the 2 different beds. The tree branch hitting the window. Right. She's turning the light on, saying, "Get up." That the get up, but don't get up when your wife tells you to. She's like,
"Yeah,
you gonna check that." And then he looks out the window and gets scared himself. And she makes the 2 beds into one, and then 2 become one.
Which was very. It was kind of an Easter egg in and of itself about how back in the days of I Love Lucy and stuff, when they showed the couple in the bedroom, they were in separate twin beds, and then later, actually, I think it was the Brady Bunch, where it was the first time where you saw a married couple actually share a bed together. So they kind of hinted towards that trope too. But Vision and Wanda, very. Very thirsty. They're very much attracted to each other.
There's never any doubt of that at all.
Yeah. I mean, throughout both episodes, like even in the first one with the lingerie, like there's a few moments there where he can't stop looking at her. He's like, "What are you wearing?" And
he's like, don't think I'm nuts. Being grateful here, but
yeah. So their chemistry very much played in live action through the black and white here.
Yeah, they went ahead and split, and I think Vision was going to meet up with like a town hall or what is that? A watch group.
The neighborhood watch.
Neighborhood watch, yes.
Yeah.
And then Wanda was going to go meet up with the town, PTA-ish group.
Yeah, it seemed like they were like basically the town housewives, whatever group that they're in. They were preparing for that talent show.
But this happened prior, and that kind of gives us a little intrigue here.
Like, what is that about?
Yeah, did you catch the colors? The colors of the helicopter were the first thing I noticed.
It reminded me of Iron Man's.
It's Iron Man suit colors. Yeah, that's exactly what I got. Once again, there's that that sword again that's on the helicopter. But this is the first instance we're getting any type of color.
Right.
So I mean, like I said earlier, it's very dramatic when they give us the colors. They only give us color one other time before they do the whole switcheroo at the end of the episode.
Right.
So when we get it, it's like, wow. I mean,
it makes you take
out. Yeah.
So she hears that noise, so she finds that helicopter, which, because we're dealing with the show, we're dealing with her power set, which is like reality bending. She got her powers from the reality stone. So there's no telling what's going on here. That maybe that was an actual real life helicopter that crashed down, and she turned it into a toy at some point. Like
She looked confused, but not confused, like scared.
right.
Like she's purposely making this world so she can stay with Vision, knowing that he died in the real world.
Yeah.
So she doesn't want this world to kind of implode on her. So she's doing everything in her power almost to keep this lie, in essence, alive.
Yeah, so after she sees this helicopter, Agnes kind of walks up onto her and then surprises her. And Agnes, throughout her dialogue, Agnes gives me the impression that she kind of knows more than she is letting on to, I guess. It could, because she knows this town back to front. She, as they're walking down the street, she criticizes Wanda's outfit, which is funny. She's like very sassy, sarcastic.
The interaction with the mailman.
Yes.
Well, then he walks by and she kind of looks at his butt and goes, "Eh."
That was so random. Like he walks up and she's like pew pew, like shooting him, like
don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah, it's like just very strange interaction.
But it falls right in line with what the show I think is going for as well. It's just
Yeah.
it's all really kind of campy.
Right.
There's a lot of it that's in this on purpose.
It's campy and it's also kind of dark. There are just these moments where it seems like we're in the X-Files or something, where it's like the mystery that's surrounding it.
Yeah.
It just punches through every now and then. You're like, what the hell was that about?
I hope the mystery isn't a letdown. Like I hope the build-up isn't bigger than the reveal of what's going on.
Right. Yeah. It's got to be. I mean, and I assume because it's Marvel, we're going to be dealing with some big time villain, maybe, or it's going to be the introduction, because you and I know, and we've heard reports that Wanda is going to be in the Doctor Strange sequel.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever weird thing
to tie into that.
Yeah,
so we may see Doctor Strange in this at some point.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, they go to this meeting and she's trying to impress Agnes and Wanda. They're basically trying to impress Dottie, right, who's like the head lady.
I couldn't stand that character.
Yeah, he was yeah.
They did a good job of making her not likable.
Oh, and Wanda also sits down she introduces herself as Geraldine, but she's actually playing, oh gosh, her name is Monica Rambeau, her character. And she's actually, you saw Captain Marvel, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Captain Marvel takes place in the 90s. Her co-pilot friend is something else, Rambeau. And her daughter.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, her daughter grows up. The daughter grows up, and in this timeline, that's her. The daughter grown up from the 90s Captain Marvel. She introduces herself as Geraldine. I don't know if that's a front, or I don't know if maybe she's just trapped in Westview like Scarlet Witch is. But yeah, that's a character that will be more important going forward.
Interesting. Like I heard rumblings about that maybe somebody else. I didn't know who it was. So that's pretty cool. That's a cool connection to that movie there.
And honestly, I think all of these characters that we've seen, these repeat characters, we've got Agnes, we've got the people, the guys that were hanging with Vision during the neighborhood watch. We've got the ladies in the that PTA style meeting.
Miss Hart,
all of them may be somewhat connected and important.
Yeah, Miss Hart, Deborah Roop's character reappeared again. She was in the audience,
right? And
they made a point of showing her multiple times.
Oh, and how weird was it when they kept saying "for the children" and they all droned it out at once as though it was they were in like a trance.
Yeah,
they were like, it's for the children, and they went for the children.
Children of the Corn things going on here.
Little children of the corn. Yeah, it was pretty creepy.
But I mean, that's crazy. I mean, then you had the whole after that meeting, you had Wanda trying to make good with Dottie.
Yeah,
and they're going back and forth. Well, thank you for letting me clean up for you. And she's like, we got off on the wrong foot, and they're trying to fix it. And all of a sudden, she's squeezing that glass, and the glass breaks and cuts her. Now we get that second instant of color. And again, it's red. Right. So we got red twice, and there's got to be something that's leading towards why are we getting the same reoccurring color?
My assumption is, I mean, you can see it all around us. It's kind of the Reality Stone subset, like it was the red Infinity Stone, and Scarlet Witch's powers, it's usually like this red mystical kind of energy. So I assume that has something to do with it. They're alluding to it. But yeah, how do we round out this episode? They have the talent show, and it's funny because you mentioned earlier how Vision, he had a piece of gum during the neighborhood watch. It kind of gunks up his system. He acts drunk, basically. His gears are grinding to a halt. He comes to this talent show drunk as this magician. And I guess he's so drunk that he doesn't care to show his actual powers in front of the townspeople.
And one
which has to
every time. Yeah.
Yeah, that was funny and really well done. It was clever how like she turned the piano into like a flat piece of cardboard, and
or the mirrors behind, when he put his hat through them, or
yeah,
it was quite a few. That was good. And then they're like, okay, let's get out of here before we get in trouble.
Yeah, I've never watched a show like this before where it's enjoyable on two levels, where it's enjoyable as just like your standard kind of campy, funny, sharp-witted sitcom, which is in itself, a fun watch. But on another level, it's got all these like weird Marvel Universe, Reality Stone, mysterious things going on around it too, which makes it just sort of a really unique experience.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it's been so fun so far. Let's just kind of pretty much round this out here. They went back at the house, and they're talking about how, they're not normal again. It's kind of how they ended the first one,
right?
And then all of a sudden, Vision notices a bump on Wanda.
Yeah, she turns around. At first, she doesn't have it. She gets up off the couch and she turns around, and all of a sudden, it's there.
Like, whoa!
Which kind of adds to this like dreamlike quality of the show. I mean, it's just like there's the non sequiturs, But that's something that's going to be, in the comics, she had twins with Vision, so I'm assuming they're going to touch on that in the episodes going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume so. I mean, I think there was even an episode where you see a bassinet, and you also see them holding two kids. So they're absolutely going to go ahead and bring them into what's going on here. But there's a few actual Easter eggs in this one as well. I didn't know. Did you notice at the very beginning when they're doing the whole bewitched thing, when the moon came up? Did you notice how many stars came around the sun or the moon? 6.
Oh, okay.
So I'm thinking that has something to do with the Infinity Stones. If there's 6 Infinity Stones and there's 6.
Oh, weren't there? There was,
yeah.
One on each finger, then one in the center of the hand.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
So I don't know if we're referring back to those because they've been destroyed, but it'll be a fun little Easter egg for people that maybe just catch it.
Yeah, that's interesting. What other Easter eggs you find in this episode?
We already talked about the helicopter being the same color as Iron Man's suit, and once again we've seen the logo from the sword on there. But going back to the commercial, the weird commercials in the middle, I mean, they're almost as enjoyable as part of the show.
Yeah,
but the whole watch company by Strucker, and with a Hydra logo in the middle of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the actual Hydra logo was on it. And then it went as far as they found out later that Baron Wolfgang von Strucker was actually the Hydra agent that experimented on Wanda.
On Wanda
and her brother.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
So I mean that's a deep dive, when it comes to an Easter egg.
That's how she was introduced in Avengers, the second one with
Ultron.
Ultron, yeah, Age of Ultron, yeah.
One of the less liked ones, but
yeah, I thought he was fun, but I like James Spader.
I forgot. I mean, this gets us off the topic a little bit, but I watched Legends, and I forgot on how much of a badass Wanda really is.
Oh yeah,
I mean, she all intents and purposes, she would have defeated Thanos by herself.
Yeah,
when she went full bore, I'm Scarlet Witch on him. Then I was like, I forgot like how bad she is.
Well, that line, she's like, you took everything from me. And he's like, I don't even know who you are, because he was a different timeline Thanos, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, you will. And she tears him up. Like, she's the one that basically rips his armor off. So he's more easily accessible to the other heroes. But yeah, which fits, because in the comics, her power subset is like, she's like top tier. So
yeah, she doesn't get that in the movies. They don't. She's not a forefront character like that, which I think she easily could be.
Yeah, but I mean, this show and the fact that she's going to be in the Doctor Strange sequel, we may see, get to see more of what her powers,
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to that after watching that Legends episode. It's like, ooh, I just maybe I was looking beyond it and seeing everything else and didn't quite see, what she was about. But
yes, I'm definitely looking forward to episode 3 for sure. I mean, I'm going to be checking. I mean, of course, we're going to watch it. We're doing this whole thing, so how can I keep?
we're kind of obligated now, aren't we?
Yeah, we've really stepped in it. But yeah, I'm interested to see more concrete answers as far as how Wanda ended up in this point. We know in the quote unquote real universe that Vision is no longer with us. We don't know what happened with Wanda post Endgame. The last time we saw her, she was kind of had that small scene with Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye at the lake. Honestly, we get two different opposing ideas so far and presented in these 2 episodes. Is she the victim or is she doing this herself? So when the sword agent kind of breaks through the radio, he's like Wanda, who's doing this to you? What's happening to you? Kind of thing, as though she's the one being victimized. On the other hand, we see in episode 2, as they get interrupted, which we haven't mentioned so far, this beekeeper come up from the ground, come up from this manhole cover, very mysterious figure. And she looks at it. She seems to know exactly who he and what he is.
And she rewinded the episode.
She says no, just straight up no. And she rewinds it back to the point where she revealed her baby bump to Vision. And then she progresses, and then she doesn't see the beekeeper outside.
Which makes me think that she has more control over this than we may have thought at first.
Yeah, so many mysteries to unravel here as the show progresses forward, but we're in for penny, in for a pound. We can't wait to see the episode 3 next week.
Yeah, I loved it. You know what, you guys? If you guys joined us this week, thanks so much. We will be doing this weekly, 10 o'clock every Friday night. We're going to break down, the up-to-date, a WandaVision episode, and we're going to have these on YouTube. So if you're not watching this on YouTube, please go over to YouTube. Hit like, hit that subscribe, hit that bell button, so when we put out new content. We'll be doing these. We have other shows, other content on there as well that you may enjoy. Our other after show we did was The Mandalorian, Sean spoke of when we first started. But I think this is a good spot for us to go ahead and sign off for this evening. What do you think, sir?
I think you're right. See you next week.